What do you think about AI and the law?
I don't see ChatGPT replacing lawyers. Like I told you earlier, I see lawyers as social doctors.
How should lawyers be approaching AI?
There are things we're still trying to navigate, but you see, the things with the lawyers is always subject to interpretation.
How do you mean?
The law is the law. The real issues that the people come to you for. Yes, there may be legal issues, but on the surface that is layered, they're really business issues. And what every business person needs is to understand, number one, everything is going to be okay. Let's just map out the process, follow the process all the time. Even if you're trying to be fancy, even if you're trying to be innovative, in law, you have to always follow the process. But how do you go about it?
What has been like the greatest challenges you found building a law firm?
For me, my number one challenge in terms of building a practice, it's not clients, it's really people. Because you cannot build in isolation.
Yeah.
And if you're able to solve for that, then you're almost halfway there. But I've realized the reality is...
My guest today is a leading legal mind that I believe is redefining the face of the legal landscape through the work that they do at a firm called Hamu Legal. She's someone that I've really studied the way she's been building her firm, and she has a lot of lessons that she can share with us, especially people that are also young and are building from Africa, and I hope that in this conversation we'll be able to dive into the conversations of how she's been able to build and even get some advice from her. I mean, she's someone that a lot of us, let me not say we can't afford all, but we can afford her services. Let me not, but she's a top mind, so I'm sure she will not be cheap to come around, right? But she's going to share with us wisdom of building from Africa because the legal side cannot be neglected. So join me today to welcome the one and only Esquire, Saadatu Hamu. A round of applause, please. All right. So thank you very much, Fali, for making our time to join us today in this conversation. The purpose of this podcast actually is to drive conversations around what it takes to build from Africa. And I've known you for, I know over 5 years. I know that I've seen you in the space, I've seen you build. And Hamu Legal now, matter of fact, I was having a chat with someone before this conversation, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm about going to do a podcast. And the person was like, why are you interviewing today? And I said, Saadatu Hamu. I said, oh, Hamu Legal. And I was like, okay. And she's a young lawyer anyways. So, a lot of people look up to you and what you actually are doing. What I love most about what you do is that, first of all, you meet three uniqueness that I have observed. Number one, being a leading woman. Number two, coming from the northern part of Nigeria. And number three, being in emerging tech. So those are very, very unique things that I've found about what you do. I'm sure there are many more, but those are very unique ones. And you do it with so much boldness. You do it with so much oomph. You do it in a way that I would want to be a lawyer. You make it look cool, right? So thank you actually for joining us in this conversation. But if we're going to dive into your journey, right, into Hamu Legal and what made you start Hamu Legal, what was that unique? There are lots of law firms exist, right? You think, why do we need another law firm? What was Hamu Legal's perspective that you were going to bring to the scene?
Wow, thank you so much, Elijah, for having me. And your very, very kind words. And to answer your question specifically, like you're asking for what was that aha moment, right?
Yeah.
I think so. It's a mix of things. Like prior to starting Hamu Legal, I had worked in another law firm for quite a bit of time. That it drilled me, it trained me in terms of the rigors of the law, amongst other things. But there was a shift in the market.
Okay.
It was around 2018. We were having a lot of early stage companies coming into the market who at the time were trying to disrupt the status quo, whatever space it is that they were operating in. So that was on one angle. And number two, these entrepreneurs didn't only just needed a lawyer. They needed someone who will be their partner in this journey because really, as you know, building is very, very lonely and tough. So we saw it as an opportunity to actually build a law firm that is catering to these emerging companies that not only serves as their lawyer, but we're partners in that journey. But
Journey with
beyond
them.
even the clients that we serve, we saw this as an opportunity to sort of shift the tide in terms of the experience lawyers have within law firms, the experience even clients have when they're engaging with lawyers. Because typically, when people are engaging with their lawyers, oh, you know what, he did not pay me my money, he did not. But as we are today, you need more than just a lawyer. You need somebody that will advise you on your strategy. You need someone that would advise you on, even beyond you start going to build that product, what does the licensing framework look like? But if you don't understand that technology or you don't understand that ecosystem, you kind of will be able to just, you would mumble your way around it and you will be fine. So for us, we had this early understanding of what the needs of the new or the new age or early stage entrepreneurs were. So we went in full force within that space. But we didn't set out to say, oh, we were going to be a tech law firm. But it's just that between the last 10 years, everybody that was building a company that did not have technology infused in it was almost not ready to either grow or exponentially advance. So if you look at our website, we've never described ourselves as a tech law firm. But I promise you, if you ask 15 or 20 people, they will tell you, oh, they are a tech law firm. But we are a full service law firm. We are a boutique full service law firm that provides services across board, not just the people in the tech ecosystem, people in the finance space, people in the health space, people in the hospitality space, people in the property space. So at the end of the day, we are like that pot that is there for you in the whole journey.
That's quite interesting. So it was more around the internal experience and also the client experience.
I love how you use the word experience because for us, experience is the core.
Okay. How do you mean?
So for everyone who engages with us, we want it to be an experience. So if you go to the next law firm, the law is the law. It doesn't shift. But as a law firm providing a service, you can decide to create an experience. Because what you need is a client that would return. What you need is a client that would advocate for you when they leave your office. And they won't advocate because you've only written a delicious memo and solved that one problem. But they will remember you when they're going to bed because of the experience they had when engaging and interacting with you. I see ourselves not just as lawyers. I tell a lot of my colleagues, to a certain level, we should see ourselves as social doctors because the real issues that the people come to you for, yes, there may be legal issues, but on the surface that is layered, they're really business issues. And what every business person needs is to understand, number one, everything is going to be okay. Let's just map out the process, follow the process all the time. Even if you're trying to be fancy, even if you're trying to be innovative, in law, you have to always, always follow the process. But how do you go about it?
So, for example, you mentioned something about going beyond just being a legal representative and more like business advisory. So, is that something that Hamu Legal is structured like? You are just not just a legal firm, you also offer some business process services and
So we do a lot
management
of
consulting.
We don't do management consulting precisely as we call it, but I think we provide a lot of back office support to a number of our clients, especially in their early stages. We don't do like investments, but maybe soon to come. Hopefully, these are things we would start doing in the
Okay.
long term. But the reality is that back end support, especially for an early stage company or a market entry client who just got into the country, they're yet to settle their fit, or maybe a company that is trying to raise financing from a VC firm. You're meeting with investors. You need somebody that is there and ensuring that all of the decks are in check, all of the documents are in line. So we provide that type of support.
So, Hamu Legal is 10 years old?
No,
How?
we're 5. We just turned 5
Really?
last year, yeah.
Okay. But the vision for Hamu Legal started in like more than 5 years ago, right?
The vision, well, I would say about still 5 years, 2017, 2018. I feel like the seed got planted in 2017. It just brought to life 2018. So overall, like I always say, an idea is a dime a dozen. Is when you actually move from an idea to action that makes everything happen. But I think for me, I've always been a lawyer through and through. And I feel like the more you are in a working space and you're not finding how to innovate and make things better, That means you're not punching above your weight, like I always say, or you're not trying to even advance yourself. So for me, because I've been in the practice of law, I've always been curious, how do we make the law better? How do we make the experience better? How do we, advance it? Because even today, as we engage in our office today, I may make bold to say, a lot of people when they join us, they say, why do you use Slack? A lot of them uses Slack. I'm like, so
You
like,
use Slack?
yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's nothing, but to a lot of people, it's a big deal. I'm like, it's basic.
My people are trying to get me to use Slack.
It makes life a lot easier. I don't like using WhatsApp because I feel like at the end of the day, WhatsApp has become a very personal space
Yeah.
for people. But by the time we begin to integrate WhatsApp and work for the lawyers, because still clients will engage with you once in a while on WhatsApp. But a core focus for us in Hamu Legal is not only provide an experience for clients, but to make sure our lawyers also are not just lawyering, they also have full lives outside of law. So, but if constantly I'm coming into your WhatsApp, having work conversations. I mean, it happens once in a while. You can't help it.
You can help
But
it.
the main core of our conversations really happen on Slack. But beyond that, I think there were also security concerns. There were encryption concerns. So it just felt like a more secured platform to have certain type of conversations.
But so moving into your building of Hamu Legal, right? What has been like the greatest challenges you found building a law firm? Because I mean,
Do you want this podcast to end? There are many. Oh.
do I want this podcast? I mean, the ones you can,
The ones
you
I can.
yeah.
Okay, I think at every phase of a business, the
Yeah.
challenges differ. Like in your first year, your big focus is how do I get clients to believe and trust me? So you're trying to solve for that at that point. So you're more focused on engaging more, getting out there more in whatever way you're using. And remember, in Nigeria, we don't advertise as lawyers.
Yes, you don't.
So it's really a business based on trust,
Yes.
and the value of what you deliver is really your work that will speak for you. And when you're looking for a lawyer, you're not saying, who is the best lawyer in maybe property, or you're looking, okay, who do I trust with this challenge that I have? That if I go and meet them, I would have that absolute peace of mind that they've taken care of it. So there is that in terms of first year. As you begin to grow, the challenges now begin to vary. You now have more real business challenges. You begin to have people issues. So how do you begin to manage and lead people? How do you attract the best talent and retain the best talent? Because you may not be able to pay what the bigger people are paying. So what are you offering that will incentivize people beyond just the pay on the table? What are you giving to them that gives them a more wholesome experience, right? Beyond that, also, as a lawyer, we were never really taught how to run businesses.
Yeah, I was
We
about
were
to. Yeah.
we were only trained how to be lawyers. So for me personally, I think even till now, it's still a huge learning curve for me. So I do a lot of reading. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I learn from people like you to
you.
really understand not just the aspect of building the idea, but how do you build it as a business? How do you optimize for your financing? How do you scale and expand and do a lot of those things? So it was a huge learning curve for me. But I think overall, for me, my number one challenge in terms of building a practice is it's not clients, it's really people. Because you cannot build in isolation.
Yeah.
And if you're able to solve for that, then you're almost halfway there. But I've realized the reality is it's the constant thing in businesses. So your responsibility as the leader of a business is to continuously see how do we keep optimizing to meet not only the expectations of the people, because the business has to be able to carry it, but also respond to the generational changes that people of this time demand.
So, I mean, you mentioned the idea of people, and I think I would like us to drill there a bit.
Yeah.
In terms of number one, I would like your perspective of compensation, because that's a big issue right now, even in the legal space. There are
Yes.
people who have conversations around lawyers are not paid well, you know.
Or you cannot be successful as a lawyer.
Well, I mean, I don't think we can doubt success,
Yeah.
but I mean, we have a lot of successful lawyers to look up to. And then also the issue of compensation, and then the issue of retention. Have you been able to navigate that? Because, like you said, there are certain lawyers that you might train or that might come to you and they might say, oh, there's no future in this space. I need to go and start selling wig. There's still, I mean, there are lots of lawyers, right? And they
Yeah.
do a lot of different things, right? But have you been able to manage that issue of compensation and then the issue of retention?
So I think they're two different things, right? Compensation is highly dependent on the business, because the business has to be able to be at a certain level to be able to provide that level of compensation. But at the end of the day, at the bare minimum, what you should aim to do is pay market rate. And for me, that has always been my focus. We would always ensure that within the size of a firm that we operate in our size, there are people bigger than us, we will pay the market rate. We will compete within our market to pay that market rate. We may not always meet up, but we try as much as possible. So that's on compensation. And then on retention. So retention is, in law, there is an assumption that law is a destination. So you made a reference that someone is trained as a lawyer and now moved to sell wig. And I say that's fantastic. It's absolutely fine, because that's perhaps where she found her calling. Because I see the law as a platform that you will gain a lot of skills. It will teach you different things, because the reality is once you get into the practice of law and you get into any other thing, you will definitely succeed. Even if not in the top 1%, you will be within the top 10%, because there is a certain level of discipline and rigor the practice of law, no matter how short and minimal it is in your life, gives you. Law and banking, they're like twins. It depends on the law firm you practice, though. So for me, I don't think is a big issue to focus on, because we need a lot of those people that are lawyers who are also branching out into other spaces, because we need to infuse that level of innovation within the legal space. But the reality is those who will stay. Because for you to be able to do the practice of law, you must actually really want to do it. You can't just say, oh, you know what, I woke up today, I want to be a lawyer, and tomorrow I don't want to be a lawyer. You must really, really want to do it, because it's not a kind of profession that you get immediate, quick returns. The experience matters, the time matters, because that's when you build the skills, that's when you build the knowledge, that's when you build the networks, and that's when you even build a reputation for yourself as a lawyer. Because the reality is people don't only come to the law firm, people meet the lawyer. I can be called the biggest name, but if we don't have competent lawyers who will deliver on the work, we cannot go anywhere.
The issue of retention, even in the aspect of having lawyers stay within the firm, have you been able to manage that? Like in terms of people who are trying to transition from the firm, have you had heartbreaks?
Of course, definitely you'll have heartbreaks. In fact, there was a time I used to tell one of my advisor, when people leave the office, I fall sick. In fact, I put a tweet about it the other day, but I realized that the reality is people don't leave Hamu Legal and go and do choppy stuff. They go and do much higher stuff. So for me, it gives me so much pride to see us as a talent hub that, oh, you've come and worked with us and you're going to do something much more advanced. So for me now, I've accepted it, but just don't leave us and go and be doing choppy stuff that doesn't make sense. That is what will break my heart.
I was actually having a conversation with, I think Big H is a photographer.
Yeah.
And he said something. He said that it breaks his heart every single
It
time.
does.
And however, that is so sad. I mean, literally, he was saying that it's so sad to find that the flower that say growing in your own garden has to go blossom somewhere else. But he has found out that really the whole love for the flower is that the flower should blossom. Not necessarily that the
That's
flower
a perfect
should
description.
stay in your garden, right? I mean, yours might be the nursery that might eventually
Possibly,
But how do you
possibly.
but how do you build a practice if you don't retain certain people? Like how do you manage that kind of this? I know within your practice, or sorry, within the legal practice, there's the issue of partnerships
Yes.
and people having a ladder to becoming a partner in the firm. How has that been like for you in terms of being able to design and reward
People within
people?
that space. Of course, it's going to be a challenge, especially in this nascent stage of your building, right? You want to have people that have grown within the system and you promote them into partnership and, stuff like that and advance. But the reality is, it may not always be the case. But if you want to be a formidable law firm, you must be able to improve your bench of expertise at a very higher level. So for us, a core thing that we've used to sort of manage shocks to the system, it doesn't matter who the lawyer is that is leaving, is have clear systems and processes in terms of how things are done. That's at least on an immediate level. But in terms of what we're looking towards to long term, so for us, we're going to have, we made very bold declarations at our 5-year anniversary. We're going to have lateral partners coming in within this year. And of course, advanced people within the system that have, reached that level of competence. Because, there is a promotion that can either be a problem, not just for you as the office. It may be the person that you're promoting that you may actually be detriment. It may be to their own
Detriment.
detriment. So yeah, so for us, like, it's one of those things that you utilize to sort of manage the system. And I don't think it's also unique to the legal profession in terms of this battle of retention. People in the tech ecosystem are also facing it.
Yeah.
With engineers, you go through
Yeah.
and we've had very so for their own industry, right? Like they've been able to create very interesting mechanisms, right, to retain people. So you're gonna have a vesting schedule, you're gonna own equity in the company, you're gonna.
Yeah.
But the reality is, a lot of people also make those sacrifices for this number of years, and then the idea goes to shit.
It's a risk.
It is a risk, but you must. If it's something you really believe in, it will not be a problem, because real builders, in fact, because it went to the ground, it's not always. In fact, it's the experience or the charge that they need to build up. Better. But in law, for me, I feel like passion is one key. Given appropriate opportunities for people to live wholly is quite key. Because the reality is, a lot of people that leave the law, it's not because they didn't want to practice the law. It's just highly time consuming. I mean, how long have you been trying to schedule this podcast?
I think a few months.
Yeah, so it's just highly time consuming. So, but you have to be able to plan better and plan people's life in a way that accommodates it. There's a lot of push for me now in my office. Oh, let's do work from home. But you have to also weigh
Where
every
you are.
aspect of it. So if you're doing work from home, you have to provide the infrastructure for that. And it's not just laptops, for us.
It's not. Yeah.
There's a privacy and security issue. So you have to just be more holistic in terms of thought process. What do you implement that works for you within each law firm? What worked in Hamu Legal may not necessarily work in Company B. But for us, a lot of times, we don't even just see ourselves, we're just a law firm. We see ourselves as every business, and we try to adapt to operate in a way that accommodate what businesses of today are doing.
So, I mean, 4 years ago, you did a master's in national security at Georgetown University of Law, Georgetown Law Center, right? And I mean, I would have expected you go do an LLM. I mean, like, what inspired that, and how has that affected your
My
your
career.
practice? Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so, well, my master's, it was an LLM.
Was it?
Yes, but it was an LLM, but it was an LLM on national security, and it was focused on the intersection of technology and regulation. So if you look at things holistically, if majority of the companies that we hope to change our world or advance where we are today are technology driven companies, and what challenges are the world facing to companies facing today? 99.9% of the time is regulation. And how do you stifle
Businesses.
innovation? There's always regulation. But the
Yeah.
reality is, I don't think any government wakes up and say, well, I don't want this innovative company to thrive. The reason why the innovation and the regulation majority of the time do not marry is because of national security concerns. So for me, I looked at things holistically, even beyond just even the practice of law. If we look at challenges that are facing the world, there was war here and there. The big challenge we would face are not going to be people having warfare on the ground. They're going to be very, very technology driven. We will reach a point where outcome of elections in countries, voting will happen in Nigeria, voting will happen in the US or anywhere, but the outcome can be rejigged from wherever in the world. So for me, it was really looking at how does technology affect the advancement of our national security, advancement of our democracy, advancement of our businesses, without also stifling our innovation. We've also seen how social media, being an emerging technology, was a hindrance to elections in certain places. And we've also had challenges with social media in our own elections. So for me, when I look out in terms of things to do or things to pay attention to, I don't just look at the now. I look at what are the challenges of our future. Perhaps tomorrow or in the next electoral cycles, our challenges may not now be fake news or bots on Twitter. Our challenges may perhaps be AI driven because that is the technology driving us today.
So, but how do we balance the issue of national security, technology, and then individual rights and freedom? Because I mean, then there is that aspect, right, in terms of um, pursuing national security, and then the evasion of people's privacy, and then people's freedom of voice. I mean, recently, I mean, countries have had issues of even shutting down social media, and for every different reasons, really, right? What do you think is the line?
I mean, national security is one of all those all-encompassing frameworks that government very often use. But I think it's very important to realize in the state we are in now globally, technology is here to stay. I mean, there was a point where they said they shut down internet in some part of the world, but internet got to them
Yeah,
one way
yeah,
one way or the other.
Starlink and all.
Yeah, so the reality is by the time we make access to the internet almost as a human right, like wherever, just the way you go and drink water, if by the time we improve access, our life not only becomes more dependent on technology, but it also advances it. So it's one of those areas when we see clearly the advancement of our life and the dependency of our life on these tools. For a government to wake up and say, oh, shut this down, you're literally shutting down your government in one, you're shutting down the country in one
Area.
in one sweep. But I feel like more advanced countries have evolved, beyond this phase. We're only having internet shutdowns in pockets of countries across Africa. And I think advocacy within those spaces for people who have been doing it, has like people like Paradigm Initiative,
Yeah.
has been very, very helpful within that space. But I feel like a gap we're not filling heavily now in Africa is the influence of technology on our electoral processes. Is an area we're still trying to understand, especially if you look at the last elections. We had a lot of issues with the BVAS, with the transmission of the results, amongst other things. So the things we're still trying to navigate, but you see the things with the law is always subject to interpretation.
Hmm.
So that's why it's always about the process. No matter what it is you're doing, go back and see what is the letter of the law. How do we comply with it? Or are there gray areas within it?
What do you think about AI and national policy right now? I mean, everyone is navigating AI differently. How do you think? Do you think we are prepared for what AI is doing in the world right now?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Even Sam Altman will struggle.
Fair
But
enough.
I mean, I think AI is just going to accelerate progress in many ways. Of course, there are risks associated with almost every type of innovation. You see, that's where my LLM comes in.
Yeah.
So there are risks with every type of innovation, but I don't think our focus should be on the risks. Is how do we use it to advance our lives? But how do we use it to advance healthcare? How do we use it to advance education and the learning process? How do we use it to advance our productivity? Because really, if I can do it in 10 minutes or 5 minutes, why do I want to do it in 2 hours?
True.
So it's how do we begin to incorporate it? But for us now, as AI conversations are being had, I don't think we as Africans are on the table.
So I actually agree with you. I think the whole AI conversation, we've not contributed. A lot of us have just been playing around with it. But I think I've started seeing some movements by certain countries. I think even the current minister for technology, I think he did something
Yes,
around
an
AI,
AI policy.
AI policy and all. And I think it's quite interesting. But what do you think about AI and the law? People say AI will replace lawyers. People say it will make the number of lawyers that you need less relevant. How have you been able to navigate that, and what are your thinking around that? Because right now we have, I don't know how many lawyers we release every year, from law school, and a lot of them are coming to think they'll have a career in law. Do you think this would affect their careers, considering
No.
the kind of space that the lawyers play in society? Now, I heard a story. I don't know if you heard that story. It's about a lawyer in New York who used ChatGPT for his law cases. Did you
Yeah,
hear?
I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah, and eventually, and he kept going back to ChatGPT for more proof when the judge was asking, right?
Yeah,
And eventually, ChatGPT brought out cases that never existed.
yeah.
Quoted cases that never existed for the judge. Until eventually, I said, "Come, what are you giving me like this?" And then he found out that
It's
ChatGPT
wrong.
was just, So, but what do you think about AI and the legal profession?
Well, at least you have one example where we will not be replaced.
I mean, but I mean, people say those are learning pangs, right?
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah, those are learning parts. But really, I don't see ChatGPT replacing lawyers. Like I told you earlier, I see lawyers as social doctors. There's an empathy and emotions lawyers provide to problems, and there is a real time understanding of a situation that you have that ChatGPT mean. So it's very analytical. It's not very practical. So there is a disconnect a lot of times in terms of the application of what it suggests to the reality of the situation. And the thing about the law is no two circumstances, no two cases are ever the same. No two scenarios are ever the same. So for me, I don't see AI replacing lawyers, but I however see AI advancing the work lawyers are doing. So you would find more situations where maybe lawyers in IP, because now there are a lot of IP issues as a
yeah.
result of AI. There's a lot of, so people will now begin to see how do we now protect my intellectual property rights beyond just the realm that we continuously know. How do we create another realm of a second layered protection for my IP? And also in terms of when you're given two judgments in terms of an issue as a judge, I'm not a judge, but I would only assume beyond just the circumstances of the case that are presented, there is a human element that is always applicable in whatever situation and in whatever circumstances that we find ourselves. For me, AI is a very welcome development in law. Please, let's have it. Let's have AI that is integrated to advance our work. Let's have AI that, because we already use it anyway. We use tools to do contract assessments. We use AI tools to do we use technology to do time tracking.
Okay.
We already use it for maybe even if it's the first layer or first base research, but it's not going to give you the exact answer to that situation. But for us also, we also have a code. There are risks. I can't feed confidential information into chat. So it doesn't, you have to just find a good balance, but it's not going to go anywhere. We just have to adapt to it.
Fair enough. But so that means how should lawyers be approaching AI?
Just see how you can integrate AI into your work. It could be as simple as doing first baseline research, understanding concepts better, simplifying things for you better. That's a starting point. At least making sure. Even there are tools like Law Pavilion.
Okay.
It's now integrating AI into the platform. I think it's like it's the biggest online law report repository at the moment. So by the time they integrate AI into it, the research for cases that will be applicable to whatever I'm researching on, I'm working on, it's definitely going to be shortened, which means I'm able to churn in my drafts faster.
And they obviously save yourself time.
Save myself time, save the client money.
Are we saving the client? Okay.
We're saving the client money now. The more time I spend now, so...
As in, what I'm saying is that do we want to save the client money?
Well, at the end of the day, you want to add value. You don't want somebody paying a ridiculous amount of money for something that could have been done in a much simpler and easier way. I don't think it's adding real value.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, let's leave this complicated side of technology and law and talk about the business side of just the business side, really. I mean, you said something about the fact that you are trained to be a lawyer, but you're not trained in the business of law. How have you navigated the idea of building yourself in the business of law, and how did you balance it? I know obviously you love the law, but also I'm also a creative. I run an agency and I also love creativity, but sometimes I find it hard, earlier in the years I found it hard to leave the creative work and focus on biz dev.
Yeah.
And then when we come back from biz dev and then jump into the creative work. So how have you been able to navigate that, and what advice do you have for, growing a firm?
Growing the firm. I think at the very early stages of the business, you're more of a founder. You're trying to build something, right? You're trying to create something in a very nascent stage. As the business continues to advance, you are also expected to advance, create systems. So like I always say, systems and processes. Bring in other people that have those skills better than you to help your business advance. That's number one. Number two, as a founder and somebody who is both owner, founder, worker, just like you are, you have to find a balance. For me, that's what I've done. There are days I work on the business, and there are days I work in the business. So Fridays are my work on the business day. I don't work in the business. So whatever I need to do is just trying to have that balance, or even if it is on a spectrum of a 7 or 8 hour work day. How many hours have I dedicated to working on the business, and how many have I focused on working in the business?
So what are the greatest business mistake, or should I say legal mistakes, or business mistakes that you've seen a lot of young founders and like within the startup space make when building startups?
I think a lot of times it's not having founder agreements, like not having shareholder agreements that outlines each person's equity in the business, roles and responsibilities. But also beyond even the legal, you only remember you signed a legal document when shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers it when everything is going well. So an important thing I think a lot of founders miss out is ideas, especially those that will disrupt whatever space, are very exciting. But you see, alignment of values is critical. How you're also going to arrive at the destination is still the same destination, no? That you are all
Going to.
you are all going to. But if you're not aligned in terms of what does the journey map look like, it can cause a lot of chaos. And I don't feel, as Africans generally, we've been taught to just sit down and just speak our hearts out. Somebody's interest may be, oh, I want to be the CEO of the biggest company in Africa. And another person's whole desire is they don't want to be the CEO of the biggest company. They just want to be able to work and go home. So you see, the one is saying, let's do all nighter in the office. This one is saying, I'll be like, what's the pressure? What's the pressure about? So like alignment of values, having clear roles and responsibility in terms of what the founders will be doing. And then more recently, especially in the financing space, we've had a lot of people going to market without understanding the licensing regime. And the licensing regime isn't always for the purpose of stopping the business from growing. It's for protecting the consumers, me and you.
So, I mean, you see a lot of tech founders. Apparently, it seems like a lot of them don't, like, we just think, let's break things. Let's just go make things and break things and figure things out. But
Yeah.
we're not really thinking about the regulatory requirement
Requirements.
of building those businesses. And I mean, it's quite scary because at the end of the day, it's the consumer that is at risk. Because we've seen a lot of up and down with a lot of startups. I mean, I don't want to name names or name any situation, but how should businesses be protecting themselves right now?
Business or consumers?
Sorry,
Consumers?
consumers, yeah.
Well, I mean, the innovation is always going to be ahead of the regulation. Always, always, always. But I think a core key thing founders should always pay attention to. You're here to provide a service. Your service a market, service either, even if it is a business, and people are relying on you on that. So if you put that at the back of your mind, even whatever regulation comes, or as your business is mapping out or defining the regulation, then it becomes easier to respond to, because the reality is the regulation will always mirror what the business is doing and how to mitigate risks for the benefit of not just the consumers or even people that are beside. But I rarely do I see companies that are really sort of disrupting the space or challenging status quo, that you will find that the regulation exists before they start.
Innovation.
Yeah.
But okay, I mean, looking at a lot of founders, like a lot of young people, a lot of young Africans trying to build businesses, I don't think they'll forgive me if I don't ask you this question.
What?
So a lot of them feel like, I can't afford to get a lawyer yet. What should I do? How should I navigate that season when I can afford a lawyer?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, affordability is relative, right?
Yeah.
And it's also the value you place on what it is that you're going for. And I think law firms are very creative in terms of how they determine value for startups. So for me, a core is, what value are you providing? What problem are you solving as a business? And if you're solving a real problem, I don't think there is any law firm that won't be able to give you a creative package that sort of accommodates those needs. If there is a clear problem you're solving, there's a clear business model. And you also cut your coat according to
where you are,
to your size. But really, costing for startups is not really the high. Legal costs are not always the most expensive thing. But if founders really understand this is a need, We need to get things right. And I'm seeing a shift. There is a huge shift in the market. The
Really?
conversation is no longer, oh, I cannot afford the lawyer. I think we've moved past away from that. Maybe 2 years ago, I noticed a complete shift. People share their product map. So you know what? We need clear advisory before we even go to start building the product. Because once you start building, if you don't see the Figma dashboard, they've gone far. And legal will come and say, oh, this can. The engineers would want to, like, you will see them in your dreams.
True. Very true. So, but what kind of creative things should we be looking out for?
Creative what?
Structures
In terms of
with the law firms.
with law firms. I can't
Equity.
speak for other law firms, so I don't know law firms in Nigeria that do equity at
Really?
the moment. Yeah, because even if they would do it, it wouldn't be directly as the law firm. It would be like a subsidiary.
Oh,
that
they're
would
not
take-
allowed to?
Yeah, because there are very interesting ways. Everything is sort of regulated.
Really?
Yes, so but you can definitely have interesting startup packages, have forward payment arrangements. Maybe as lawyers, you can have an interest. But sometimes having that interest, you don't want to have conflict when you're doing the advisory as well. So there's always some creative way to map it out. Let me not be discussing what you did not send me to discuss.
No, please don't discuss. Please, I want this podcast to fly. I don't want it to become a legal matter now. So, but I mean, Fali, you've been building Hamu Legal 5 years, and what keeps you inspired, really? I mean, how do you go through the rigor and the hard days where
The
you?
hard days when I mean, it happens. There are days you really don't want to just do what you need to do. But the reality is there are lives dependent on you. There are businesses that are reliant on you. But for me, always, my biggest pride is when I see the businesses that we've advised, actually their ideas coming to life. When I pass Abuja, streets of Abuja, and I see, oh, like we advised on this project, or we see, I'm turning on the TV and I'm seeing one of my clients doing a huge. I'm like, well, look at that. We've come a long way. So when you see the impact as a business or as a law firm you've had, not only on yourself financially, because it really helps, to be honest, but you've helped bring ideas of other people come to life. I mean, I don't think anything is more gratifying than that. But the biggest highlight for me every day, and I say it all the time, is for me the people that we've built within Hamu Legal. Like, I can say it boldly. I don't think anybody will work in Hamu Legal and not be able to thrive anywhere. It will be very rare.
That's quite interesting. I mean, but how has it been for you being a woman in this industry that I feel is men driven?
Is it men driven?
Well, I mean, like it looks like a men's club.
Perhaps as it were. Like, I just see people, to be honest. But the reality is the law is a very knowledge-based profession. And a lot of times when people ask me that, I wonder, like, nobody comes to you as a lawyer because you're a woman. It's not the first question that people ask. So for me, I don't even see it as a challenge. Sometimes I see it as an opportunity, because really you can't have all these men giving you one-sided thinking. So, but I really don't see it as a challenge, and I don't think it's ever been a hindrance in any way that restricted us from getting an opportunity. If we bid for a job and we get the job, it's because the client believed we're the best lawyers to get that job done. And if we didn't get it, maybe we're not a best fit for each other, or maybe not now, maybe later. So that's where the entrepreneurial thinking comes in.
Okay, but I mean, looking towards like the next decade for Hamu Legal, or even maybe the short term, I know the world is very changing now.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to just say next decade, right? But
Yeah.
what are you excited about? What should we be expecting from Hamu Legal? Are there new products we should be expecting? Are there new, like, what's exciting with Hamu Legal right now?
Well, I think for us, really, we're focusing more in terms of expanding our expertise bench, especially our leadership bench within the team, like I've mentioned to you earlier. Our clients are also beginning to expand as businesses. So their needs are not also very niche. So they require more from you as a law firm. So hopefully more partners, a merger here and there, who knows? But we'll see how it happens.
Merger. Okay. Does that happen in legal
It
practice?
does a lot.
Huh. I'll be praying about that because I actually think mergers are good. I think they help, like,
Solidify the space.
yes, but I think they just have to be done.
They have to be done right. They have to have alignment. But really, we're not really in a hurry. Like for us, we'll continue innovating. We'll continuously keep advancing ourselves within the system. Our intention is not to be the biggest by value, by number of offices or number of lawyers. Our focus has been we want to be the biggest by the impact we've had in where we're operating and the ecosystem we're serving.
What would you call your superpower?
My superpower? Interesting. I think I get shit done.
Really?
Yeah.
You
I
get
just get
shit
shit done.
What does that mean?
I just get it done.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, someone
I've
asked
actually
me.
never thought about it, but I kind of feel like I really get shit done, Elijah. There is nothing you'll bring to me if I can do it. Even if a human being, as long as a human being doing it, if I can't do it, I'll find the best person that will do it.
I love that. So, I'll be giving some quick questions right now.
Okay.
If you could rewrite one law in Nigeria, what would it be?
That's hard though.
Like, so you just add one comma, add a full stop. What would it be?
That's tough. It's really tough. I don't know.
Or you could add one law.
I can add one law. I think I will add in the constitution. No, we need more women in the National Assembly. Like make it a constitutional issue.
But is it a constitutional issue right now?
Is not well. They've been trying to do an amendment. They've been trying to pass a bill.
Like, I
on
mean,
it.
like, is there like a constitutional restriction on the women you could have there?
No. Just affirmative action. Push for affirmative action.
Really? You believe in affirmative action?
In our governance process, for us to be able to, if you're looking at a hugely male-infiltrated space, it's the governance space. And when you put women in charge, good things happen.
I mean, with the current news we've been hearing, it gets scary.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you
Tell me.
forgotten?
It doesn't matter.
I don't want to go into politics.
But still, put women in charge.
No, I mean, I love having women in charge. As a matter of fact, someone asked me recently that your top management people, how many percent are women? And I told him, I said, actually, we have about 50 to 60%.
It's results happen.
No, I like working with women.
I know.
like working
Funny
with
enough, when we started Hamu Legal, I was the only woman.
Really?
Yes.
You had mostly me.
I had a team of 4 guys, but then now we are more women than men.
What's one legal skill that you feel one skill that you feel every legal person should have?
Attention to detail.
How do you build that?
Doing it every day. Read it 10 times. Proofread it. Skim through it. It's the biggest life hack.
On repeat.
On repeat too. On repeat. That attention to detail is it all.
So if you weren't a lawyer, what would you be doing?
Maybe I'll be a photographer.
What?
Yes.
I would have never guessed that answer.
Yeah. I would have been a photographer. I've always had passion for photography. I collect photo books. I'm friends with a lot of people in the creative space.
Yeah.
I think I have a creative mind that is asleep.
Photographer. I would have thought maybe you say venture capitalist or
No.
private equity.
Yeah, I mean, those are still they're all tangentially related to the work I'm doing
Yeah,
today.
already do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'll be in the creative space or I'll be teaching. One of those two.
So Professor Hamu.
Who knows?
Okay. So, I mean, what's the funniest thing that has happened to you that you could share with us?
Funniest?
In the course of your work? Whether
Very
in court
recently,
or...
it's not in court. I was in the airport. I was sitting. They called the flight and the flight left.
What happened?
I did not hear it. I was walking. I was so, you know how you're super engrossed in the
Would you
work.
call yourself a workaholic?
I am a workaholic. I love my job. So
What sacrifice have you had to make?
In terms of work,
Yeah.
sleep, I've sacrificed sleep a lot.
Wow.
I don't joke with my family time. I don't joke with my personal time.
Okay, so you
I
didn't
take
have to
it.
sacrifice that.
I mean, there are days that you would want to do more. Certainly, you have to just have a good rhythm and good balance. There are days you want to spend more time in bed, but you can't. There are days you want to go to the dinner earlier, but you can't. But you just have to find a way. There are trade-offs at every phase in your life. If this is the sacrifice I need to make now, sleep less, spend less time with those who I love, to be able to build to a certain level, then it's all fine and good.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and that is around like your journey of building, right? Have you ever have to turn down a client because of your belief system or because of your perspective?
It's
Really?
happened, yeah. So
Why?
you can build a business, but not every client will be a fit for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we did very early was define our client persona. So there are clients, even if they don't fit our persona, but we align on values. We believe in what they're doing. We could, work together. But one thing is we cannot work for rude people.
You cannot work for.
For rude people.
How do you mean?
Just people that just don't treat people as human beings. Right? And
Do
it
you find that? Do
happens
you find that a lot?
very rarely. Very,
Okay.
very rarely. But I think most importantly is when you just don't align on values and you don't believe in what they're doing. So you're not able to holistically advise as well. So yeah, it's happened to us.
So you've met a client before and say, yes, you have money to pay me, but I'm not going to work with you.
No, we just told them we don't think we're the best fit for them in terms of what they were. It doesn't mean they were bad.
Yeah.
I don't think we're not the best fit for them to achieve. And I think they were very clear. They told me, I want a bulldog, and I'm not a bulldog. I'm not your lawyer to be your bulldog.
What does that mean?
Like I would tell, thank you very much.
I mean, but you seem to have understood it.
Yeah, like somebody to just pick a fight.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
and you won't do that.
It's not that there are battles happen.
Yeah, battles. I mean,
go, yeah,
obviously.
but you don't pick a lawyer because you want. Like I don't think is the clear metric. I don't understand the brief on that basis.
Was that a values thing or was that a personal preference?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it's both because you may have a way you want to approach life. You may have a way you want to approach things. If you come to me on day one, I want a bulldog. Tomorrow you tell me, oh, I want to arrest this person because I just didn't like the way he smelled. You never know. You never know. I mean, it happens all the time. And we made referrals for them. We made referrals for them and we're okay.
But why won't you do that?
Because it's not the work we do. I can't define being a bulldog as a service.
That's really that's really I don't know what word to use, but what have you found any legal challenge that has given you the most joy that you could share with us?
Legal challenge that has given me the most joy. What can the thing that's the problem. I will struggle.
I know.
I will definitely struggle.
Or should I say legal outputs that has given you the most joy?
I mean, I've been very excited about the reforms that happened in the last administration.
Okay, you guys were
With the
part of some
business
of them.
facilitation, with the
Acts.
business facilitation act. That was great. The
Startup Act.
the startup act is a big win. But I think I'm more excited about the reform to the Companies and Allied Matters Act. Also reform to the Bank and Other Financial Institutions Act. So that more or less, I think it's the one that excited me the most because it suddenly opened up the banking space, and it provided more buffers for those who are there in terms of regulation. So because it opened it up, that's why you see a lot of banks are now doing holding companies,
Yeah, hold cool.
investing more. It's sort of just that unbundlement released capital into the
To the
world.
economy.
Yeah.
But what would you say about global expansion?
Of course, it's always on the table. As a service or as a firm today, if your focus is just insular in terms of where you're operating now, then you're not thinking for tomorrow because the world is globalized. So people want, if I come into Africa and I'm in Nigeria, if I go to Ghana or if I go to Kenya, I'm not trying to look for law firms. And the same way as a law firm, as maybe TM Global, you decide to move to the US, the same experience you've received from Hamu Legal in Nigeria, even if the US market is different, you want something as closely to that as possible. So for us, we're aggressively looking at how do we create more international collaborations at this stage that we're in. That's a very, very prime focus for us.
Wow. Do you have any hobbies?
Yes, plenty.
Like besides photography?
Besides photography, I'm not even. Maybe you need to teach me. Well, I journal. I journal. Oh, I try to journal every day. Which is not a hobby, but just something I do constantly. I run.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
know that.
I
know
love
that.
running. I've just picked up golf.
Really?
Yeah, and I think it's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
Golf.
And for me, I love challenges, so I've decided it won't win me. I will win it.
Where did you get this from?
What?
This, like, your doggedness, focus, and you
Which
tend to like
focus?
challenges. You tend to
I
like challenges. Like you don't turn down from you don't look like someone that turns
I
down a
love hard
fight.
problems. So
Yes. So where did you get it from?
I don't
Your
know.
dad, your mom.
I don't know. Maybe
Are you the first lawyer in your family?
No, I'm not. But yeah, from my mom, well, yeah, I am from my mom. I'm the firstborn. But I really don't know. I just love solving problems. So if things are easy,
You get bored.
yeah, even to wouldn't you get bored?
Yeah, I do. But I mean, like yours, you missed your flight.
It was like it was
And
crazy.
you were checked in. So you have to go and buy outside.
I had to go and you know how this going downstairs
Yeah.
it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. My luggage was even checked in.
Yeah, it was gonna go before you.
But it was one of those things, and I didn't
I hope
get
it
to
was not an
leave.
international trip though.
No, it was a local flight to Lagos, and I didn't get to Lagos until I think 11 p.m. instead of getting to Lagos at 5 p.m.
Wow. Thank you very much, Fali. I'm very grateful for your time.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you very much. You had a great time today.
Yes.
And I mean, if we continued, I knew you have somewhere else to go. Would have been here for
Really?
yes, because trust me, there were unending questions that I had
Really?
and I couldn't bring out.
You couldn't bring out.
Yes. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us in this conversation. Share this video, like, comment, let everyone come and hear these conversations and learn from the journey of Fali and how she has been able to build Hamu Legal and her thoughts on prevailing issues around technology, business, and the legal profession. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great day.